Thanks, Brooke.
Good afternoon. We are beginning our second round of interviews for this Saturday, and we have Dr. Grant Swallows with us. Dr. Swallows, I'd like to just, on behalf of myself and the board, say thank you for your interest in the director position. I also want to extend an apology in regards to the scheduling conflicts that we faced.
Sure.
But we're here today, and we're so very much interested in your interview. And so now I'd like to go around and just have everyone introduce themselves. I'm Tanya Best, chairman of the board.
Teddy Jones.
Sue Anderson.
Okay.
Helen Martin.
And Bill Sackman, and welcome, Dr. Swallows.
Thank you.
So good to have you.
So let me clear up real quick. I want to make sure I'm not yet Dr. Swallows. I'm close. All right.
Okay.
I'm on the end of my degree. So I'm Mr. Swallows until hopefully
Okay.
June or July. So I want to
Thank
make
you.
sure that we clear that up and make sure I don't mislead anybody.
Thank
Looking
you.
forward to the hooding ceremony.
Absolutely. You don't know how much I'm looking forward to it.
Dr. Swallows, or excuse me,
That's
Mr.
okay,
Swallows,
yeah.
we'll start this by, do you know a little bit about Warren County mission and vision statement and a little bit about the demographics of our students?
I do. I'm not going to tell you that I have memorized it, but it is in your strategic plan. So superior learning, I know, is a part of it. I love the vision that one team that provides a superior education for every student. I think that's a great vision for us, for any school district. And so, and the mission that I love, again, kind of being with a high school background, college or career readiness and social and emotional well-being of our children. The district has said it plainly for the mission of all of our educators, and so that's good. Demographically, of course, being in White County, just right next to you, we know you real well. So a little bigger than us in White County, I believe, just around 6,000 students, but we're very similar in our economically disadvantaged. Our SPED population's very similar in that. So I did look at that a little bit and just to familiarize myself with the inner workings of Warren County.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Teddy?
Grant, question about basketball program.
Yes.
How about them Pioneers?
Oh, now, see, you got to. The last time, we talked about this. On my way down here, I thought the last time I was in this building, I left a little dejected. But what a great year,
Yeah.
Coach Sullins and the Pioneers.
Yes,
I mean, just a
yes.
fantastic year. We got to host you in the district tournament, and another knife to the heart for Warrior fans. But what a great atmosphere for student athletes
Yes.
to compete in. All the folks from Warren County on one side, all the White County folks, and maybe, if not the loudest I've ever heard that gym, the second loudest.
Yeah.
So
But let me jump in here, Brother Teddy.
Very
I too want to compliment you, your school community, and all of White County. I think we attended every one of the district
Great.
games, and
Great.
number one, I think it says something about school system management when you walk into a building and it is spotless. It is clean. Visited the restrooms, very clean, well equipped, everything taken care of. So, I want to compliment you. Those things don't happen by accident.
well, we take pride in that and have a great team that does it.
Well, you certainly do a lot of compliments on it. I want to compliment your school community because the sportsmanship that I saw, and it was tough competition.
It was.
It was tough.
It was.
And your team and your coaches gave it everything. Had tremendous support. When White County, the Warriors scored a bucket, it felt like the building was shaking because of the applause and cheers. But your county is an example of good sportsmanship.
Well, thank you. I don't need to get choked up at the beginning of an interview, but I appreciate you saying that because we have great kids and we have a great community that supports us. And it was just a fantastic night. I wish beyond all hopes that we would have come out victorious, but
Right,
I'm
sure.
prouder of the way our student athletes handled themselves and our students handled themselves, because those are educational opportunities even in defeat. And so I was proud of that. And honestly, it was great to see your community be able to celebrate something they had not been able to in a long time. And what a great tribute to Coach Sullins and all those boys for what they did.
Well, thank you for saying that.
I do have an actual question.
Okay, great. Yeah. We could talk about this a
Oh
long
yeah,
time.
I'm sure. Yeah. Your view from the outside would be an interest to us, especially considering what you see as our district's strengths and weaknesses.
Okay.
And in particular, as a new director, how would you see about addressing and improving those
Okay.
strengths and those weaknesses?
All right. Well, I've always taken great interest in watching and seeing what Warren County's doing, because I believe there are a lot of great things that are going on here. We talked about, before we came on, about the dual enrollment opportunities that Warren County has among for students to be able to go on to the TCAT here in McMinnville, and also with Motlow. Just what a great opportunity that Warren County has for students to get post-secondary credit even while they're in school. Your CTE program is really top-notch. Tracy Reisinger does a great job with the CTE program. I know that's not just her; it's a lot of different things. But what a great! It feels like I can't pull up a, Tennessee Department of Education update without something in Warren County being featured in it. So there's a lot of great things going on here with all the different opportunities that students have. So that's pat on your back. I mean, we need to shine our star where we can. Some of the challenges, I think, as you look at, unfortunately, I think districts are measured on test scores more than we should be, but that's just the measurement of our society at this time. I think there are some challenges there in performance. I think as you look at some of the, the growth scores, I don't think you're where you want to be as a district in growth scores, but that's a challenge. That's a tough challenge for everybody, but that can get better. I think you can look at being under the state average in math and literacy. I think that's a challenge. That's something that can be taken on. But let me say this at the very beginning, because I believe this, and I don't want you to think that but you're going to hear it during this hour quite frequently. I had the opportunity to go to a professional development conference, and maybe my second year as principal. It was the Model Schools Conference, and Dr. Bill Daggett got up and he gave this whole long speech, and I only heard 3 words, and they have helped shape me as a building administrator. It's culture trumps strategy. Okay, culture trumps strategy. I believe that wholeheartedly, and I can tell you this: it has served us well in White County. At White County High School, before I came there, we had some apathy. We had some maybe we weren't happy to be there all the time. And so that's hard, and it's hard to perform on a state test, or it's hard to perform in the classroom when maybe you don't want to be there, So using the adage, culture trumps strategy, we just had to get our culture right. We had to do some things to make people want to be a part of our culture. They wanted to. We've got to get them sold on what we're doing, because when you can do that and you can get them to buy into that culture, all that strategy just takes care of itself. Those test scores will take care of themselves, because I guarantee you, if I walked into a classroom in Warren County, we're not doing anything different than what districts that are scoring highly on these tests. But the culture may be better somewhere else, all right? So we're going to attack that culture, all right, whatever it takes. And that is a part of you're going to say, how do you fix that culture? Well, that's a team effort, all right? That starts with you guys as the board. It goes to the director, it goes to the central office staff, it goes down to the school staff, the building leaders, it goes to your community. You have to fix that culture. A part of that culture is the community involvement I saw in that district basketball tournament. Warren County wants success. You watch them cheer when they won that basketball game. Hey, let's cheer for them when we get to that 21 on the ACT. Let's cheer that on, right? Exactly. Let's be fired up when that happens. Let's shake the rafters when that happens. That's when you get the culture that you want, right? And so that's the thing that's got to get better. We've got to fix the culture. And I don't know what it is. I'm from the outside. You made that point, from the outside looking in. I don't know that yet, but I think it's a great opportunity from somebody coming from the outside in to have a unique perspective of, all right, maybe this school, they're not where they need to be culture-wise. Let's attack this. Well, this school is where it needs to be culture-wise. Let's take what they're doing and make it work over here, right? And I think the great part of a community like this is that you've got different dynamics in different parts of the county. I would assume we have that in White County. But we're all one district. We're all one team that provides a superior education for every student. So we got to be working together, and that's a part of that culture as well. So I don't know that I'm giving you the X's and O's of what you want to hear in that, but you're going to hear me say it time and time again. Until we get that culture right, we're not going to do anything strategy-wise that's going to really make a difference. We've got to make sure that works. I can tell you in our first year at White County, I came in and we got together as a team and we decided on what needed to get right in our culture. We needed to enforce the rules that were out there, not pick and choose. We just needed to enforce. We had to go back to the basics of doing what school was. When we did that, our achievement took off. We were doing effective things, but when we fixed the culture, our achievement took off. We were named a reward school, which means we were in the top 5% of the state in my second year for growth because we fixed the culture. And I think we could do that here as well.
Thank you, Grant.
Sir, how do you plan to work with the business and the community at large to ensure that the school district develops a program to provide educated to the workforce?
Well, we have to. We absolutely have to because, again, I'm just going to keep sharing examples with you. I went to the Upper Cumberland has a leadership conference in the summer of Fall Creek Falls. I'm sure you've heard about it, talked about many times. But I went to a session, and one of the first pictures that the guy put up on the PowerPoint was the town square with businesses with boards over their glass. And he said, this was a problem we had to fix. And so if county school systems don't address the needs of their county and the business community, then you end up with a town square with boards on the windows. Because if we're not preparing the next generation of Warren County citizens and workers, then we're not doing what we need to do. So we've got to have input from the business community to know, what do you need? What do you need? One of the eye-opening things that was said to us, we have a CTE advisory committee. You've got the same thing, and that's such a valuable tool. And one of the things that they said to us at one time, and I hate this, and I probably shouldn't say it on TV, but one of the things that they said was, you know what, if you can just send us a worker that can pass a drug test, we can put them to work. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Is that bar not low, folks?
Yes.
That bar's low, all right? We got to raise that bar, all right? If we want productive members of our society, we've got to raise that bar, and we've got to know from our business and communities where we need that to work. Warren County has done that extremely well, I think, with the CTE programs and the post-secondary things that they've been able to do. And so we've got to make sure that we foster a community where business leaders can feel like they can come to the director of schools or the school principals and say, hey, we need this. We need you to concentrate on this. We need workers in mechatronics. We need workers in skilled trades. And while we want high ACT scores, we ultimately want to create productive citizens that are going to come back to Warren County and carry us on, because they're going to be taking care of us later, all right, whether we want it to or not. And so we're producing that next generation of workers. And so the business part of it is vital. We have to be a member of the community at large, being out, being visible, talking to businesses, being a part of Chamber of Commerce events, going and just, being engaged. Ultimately, I guess I can wrap all that up with a director of schools has to be engaged in the community, period, and then needs the team to be engaged in the community because we've got to serve that community. That's why we're here.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, Grant, on a different note, you're going to have complaints from
Oh, yeah.
teachers and other principals and school politics and decisions and all that within the district and the school. If you received a complaint, what steps would you take in resolving the matter, and how long would it take you to get around to solving that problem?
Well, if you don't get around to it quickly, you're going to have more complaints. So, it's inevitable that we're going to have that. Listen, in families we have complaints, and that's just the way the world works. All right. I wish it wasn't the case, but that's just the way it is. The first thing that I would say is that I hope, and I'll talk more about this in a minute. Anytime we have a complaint, I'm going to insist on being respectful of each other. I'm going to be respectful of the person that's going to file the complaint or comes to me with a complaint, but I would also ask that they be respectful of me, all right, or of our school employees of which the complaint has happened. One of the things that I've tried to do as a principal that I think works well, that would absolutely work, I think be necessary for a director, is we want to listen. If they're upset, we need to give them a chance to get it off their chest, and then we're gonna set about the work of trying to fix it. My first thing is, hey, have you talked to the teacher, right? We can settle a lot of complaints if we just talk to each other, all right? And so I think that's the thing that I would try to deflect back. Hey, have you talked to the teacher or whoever you've got an issue with? Have you talked to the principal? If you've not, then let's set that up, all right? Now, I have to be smart about that too. You come into my office and you're just really fired up. I need to protect our employees. All right. I don't need to turn and just deflect and say, hey, you need to go talk to that teacher. All right, because that's when I have to step in and say, all right, let's set up a meeting together. All right, and let's talk about this. Let's give a chance to cool down a little bit. I've heard your complaint. Let's cool down. We're going to set up a meeting in a day's time, and we're going to get to the bottom of this. I guarantee you we can fix a lot of problems that way. But I'll go back to the first thing I said. We've got to respect each other, because there may be a time where we leave a meeting that we disagree. We're just going to have to agree to disagree. But at least everybody's had the opportunity to air their grievances. We've given the employee the opportunity to fix it, and we're gonna work together to make sure that this goes better going forward. Timeline is just, you've got to, if you delay those things, they don't feel like they're heard, and that's not right. And we're gonna work to make sure that doesn't happen.
Mr. Swallows, you talk about school culture and what Bill Daggett said about
Yes, sir.
Culture is probably job one over strategy. One of the issues we have in Warren County, and of course you know this from having studied our published numbers, is the ACT score.
Right.
Now, realize that ACT is kind of falling out of favor as a college admission index. I don't know. I don't think that's such a good idea, but anyway, some major institutions are doing that. I think ACT is a pretty reliable proxy for what you have achieved, what the student has learned in 12 or 10 or 11 years of school. Would addressing culture, would that fix our ACT problem? And I want to say, as a board member, we have an ACT problem. We're stuck at 18.
Well, that's a start, all right? But when you talk about culture, part of that is expressing why the ACT is important. If students don't understand that, who's going to go in there and sit for a 4-hour test and really want to do well?
Right.
So we've got to prove to students first. Well, let me back up. We've got to prove to educators first why it's important that those students take that. That's a part of culture, all right? One of the things that we've been fortunate to been able to do, but see, that's not just high school teachers either. You know, that preparing for the ACT begins way before that. Some people would tell you everything they need to know academically for students to take on the ACT is done after the 7th grade. You can find experts that would tell you that. And then the ACT becomes a problem-solving test, and that's what it is. That's what the ACT exam is can students problem solve? All right. Let me give you a little. I told myself going into this I wasn't just going to talk about what we've done, but I need to prove to you that we know what we're talking about in this. We have been similar to Warren County. When I got there, and when I got to White County High School, we were in 18.2. We went up 1/10 of a point to 18.3, and we thought we had just conquered the world. We went up the next year to an 18.4, and then the next year we went to an 18.5, and we're just saying, all right, baby, we're making progress. But when we got serious and said, hey, look, this is important. We need students to understand why they're doing this. We need teachers to understand why they're doing this, and made that a part of our culture. We went from an 18.6 to a 20.3 in 1 year. And we were recognized by the State Department of Education as the district that grew the most in that 1 year, because we focused on it and we made students believe. Am I saying they all did? Absolutely not. Some of them went in and Christmas treed, but even if we changed 10 of their minds, I guarantee it made a difference for us. But we also changed the minds of teachers and showed them. Now, how do we do that? We incentivize students. We talk about how important it is. We make it seem like it's important, but that's a part of culture. If it's important to us, it's going to be important to them. So we did that. We focused on it. We brought PD. We brought PD in even this past summer. Professional development for all of our teachers, even middle school teachers, to where we talked about the importance of. We have to demystify that exam. If you went to Warren County High School, not right now because nobody's there or here, but we walked into a classroom, you say ACT, they tense up. We have to demystify that test. And so one of the great things we did, we took a chart and gave it to all our teachers and gave it to all of our students and said, you know, on the English test, if you only get half the questions right, only half, you're going to get a 21 on that score. And that's what the state says makes your college and career ready. So does that not take some of the pressure off? All you got to do is get half of them. And so we're trying to help our students understand. That's where the strategy comes in. You got to get the culture right, tell them how important it is, and then you set about the steps of strategy. I promise you that score can come up. Now, it's not easy, all right?
Yeah.
I don't want Warren County High School to think, hey, I'm bashing on their score, because I'm not. It's hard. It's hard work. And as many students as you have, to get it to go up, it's hard to do. But at the end of the day, there are some strategies that can be used to do that.
I thank you, Madam Chairperson. If I could just ask a follow-on question. And yes, Warren County has been working on it.
Sure.
And our Director, Bobby Cox, has made it a priority.
Yeah.
And I think he's had a lot of support and buy-in from the faculty and the school leadership. One thing we know, and you know this probably better than most people, is that ACT doesn't start when you're a freshman in high school.
That's
that
right.
number that you got on ACT is a composite that reflects everything that's happened in that student's career.
Absolutely.
From kindergarten on up.
Yes, sir.
Now, here's the other number that we're looking at, and that is third grade reading proficiency.
Yep.
Now, you know, the research is unanimous in agreement that if a student is not reading on grade level by the end of the third grade,
Right.
his or her chance of ever catching up
That's right.
is vanishingly small.
Yes, sir.
So if we're not getting it right by the end of the third grade, we're going to have a persistent deficiency.
You're right.
So what's your strategy? What's your culture
Yep,
change
yep.
To get this from kindergarten through the third grade?
You just proved for me, and can I just say kudos to all of you, that a board member knows that. You just proved that the culture is already started and doing what needs to be done, because you know that stat alone, all right? You knowing that, it starts at the top, it comes down, and we have to communicate to teachers, hey, look, the board knows that if they get past third grade and they're not on reading level, that they know how important it is. We have to know how important it is, all right? So then we set about the work of fixing that and making sure that students don't get left behind when talking about reading. Now, there's all kinds of strategies that you can see. Read 20 minutes a day. We see that everywhere these days. But hey, don't discount that. All right, you know, we've got to do that. I'm blessed with 3 children. All right, my oldest child's 13. And I don't know if anybody has experienced this, but I read 20, probably 40 minutes a day to him. But now I've got 3 children, and my youngest one's 6. I'd just like to be able to read to him 5 minutes a day, right? But at the end of the day, I'm getting away from what you're talking about, the importance of doing that and understanding his need for literacy and not getting behind. That leads to apathy. The apathy we've talked about, they get bored. They get to where they just don't want to come to school. That affects your attendance rate. All right, because they don't want to come to school. Right. So we've got to make sure that teachers, especially K1, 2, that understand, hey, this reading is important. We've got to make sure that we're doing the things that we don't let students go past us without being able to read proficiently.
That's a very strong statement, and thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Grant, this particular question refers to staff, personnel management, faculty.
Okay.
What is your approach to problem solving with those individuals?
All right. So again, I think it goes back to a similar question to, not necessarily conflict, but with problem solving with teachers or employees. Again, they need to feel like they're heard. We need to make sure that they know I'm approachable. And we go back to the word I used is your leader has to be engaged. If your employees don't feel like that they have an engaged leader that's going to hear out their issues and work to solve them, then, you know, again, your culture's not right.
Are you the type of person who you've got people in your building, you have open door, they can just come in, say, hey, I have a problem, or
Well,
I have
I would
a
say
question?
I would say with these things, does anybody not have an open door policy anymore? I mean, with phones and technology, we're available all the time. Now, yes, can anybody approach me? Yes. Now, I will tell you, again, being just completely honest with you, when I grew up, when I went to school, we had building managers. I loved my high school principal, but I didn't see him a whole lot, all right? And so, but we had building managers, and I was scared of the principal, right?
Yeah.
It's not necessarily that way anymore. I think my students respect me, but I don't necessarily think they are scared of me, but that's good because they can come talk to me. Same thing with employees. If they're scared of me, they're not going to come talk. And so we've got to make sure we establish that relationship first and foremost, to be able for them to feel confident to come to me and to be able to say what they need to say, and then me help them solve their problems. They've got to be able to trust me. They need to know that I'm not going to turn around and throw them under the bus to whoever they've got a conflict with. I'm going to be somebody that listens and then sets about helping them. Now, some of that may be, hey, you're just going to have to get a little tougher. You're going to have to get a little tougher. That's going to happen. I understand. I feel bad for you, but you just get right back on the horse and you go back in that classroom and go to work. All right? Or it may be, hey, I need to go talk to Mr. Zeckman over here and say, hey, listen, I've had an employee come to me and talk to me about something. Let's work on this. All right? Let's make sure that we're fixing this together. But all those situations are different. But again, starts with being approachable, being engaged, being a listener, and then supporting them from where they go.
And making them feel like there's no repercussions because,
Sure,
you know, they come in and talk to you about something.
well, and I think that's
A lot of them are scared because of.
And they do, and again, that goes back to the trust. If I've tried, and it's not always easy. Look, I'm not anywhere close to perfect. So if somebody comes to me with a complaint, you know, if I get mad, if I get upset with that complaint and I run down and say, well, so-and-so just told me you were doing this. Well, that so-and-so's never going to come back to me at that point, right? And so you've got to be smart with things like that. And now there may come a time to where you have to say, all right, now so-and-so's the one that told me this, and I appreciate her honesty coming to me because this is a problem that needs to be fixed, and we're going to fix it together. And so, yeah, repercussions are hard, but that, again, goes back to trust. If they trust us, then we're going to do okay with it.
But repercussions, a lot of times, I think they're just really scared they're going to lose their job.
Sure, yeah, that's right.
And that's a big question mark
Yeah.
there.
Well,
you
and
know.
again, you just have to, you've got to work to build that trust. That's, I don't know, this is going to be off that question, but I think this, first of all, let me say, you all have an extremely tough decision, all right? And this one statement may cost me the job, and if that's the case. In this time that we're in, folks, this hire is important. It's always important, but with what we're facing right now, people have to trust their leaders. In August, if we go back to school, they're going to need to trust the person sitting in this chair, that they've got the right heart for kids, period, because it's going to be scary in August. I don't care what happens between now and then. We've got to instill some trust in parents and students that, look, we understand your fear. We understand, and we've educated ourselves to make sure we're doing what's right by Warren County students. We would never put your student in harm's way by sending them into a building where we feel like they're going to get sick. All right? Some parents are going to say, we want our kids to go. Take them, please. We're tired of them. But at the end of the day, we've got to do what's best for all the students, and that starts with trust. Same thing, and again, I'll tie what you said and what you said all the way back to trusting your leader. They've got to, I, as a director of schools, have to build that trust and not forsake it, because that's what's most important in this.
But I guess it's probably going to be hard, I'd say, to gain that trust.
It
You're
is?
going to have to work
Sure.
really hard, because, you know, the past comes across to the future,
Sure.
and they've just been maybe, I don't know, help me out, somebody, hurt or
Yeah.
been in a situation that they have, you know, reaped the repercussions of maybe losing a job. You know, a lot of times, you know, you think that people talk and say, well, managers or directors or whomever is at the top will say, well, you have that open door policy. Do they really want to hear what I have to say?
Right.
Then if I really tell it, then what's going to happen to me?
Right. And again, one of the things that you've got in your plan is a beliefs system. All right, and that's more about this as well. Whoever you choose for this position has to have a set of beliefs, of core beliefs, and that's what guides me. All right, that's the only way I'm going to build trust. Okay, just because I talk about it in my interview, and I walk in, you hire me, and I walk in, it's not just going to be an 8. It's not going to, and it's not going to happen overnight.
Right.
But trust is built in how you handle those situations. All right, and I bring up the beliefs part of it because people have to understand. I'm not going to make popular decisions all the time. I'm not. I wish I could, but in a school system, you're not. But I need people to understand my core beliefs say this about me. I'm going to be truthful. My integrity is important to me. And I care about kids. That's why I'm in this. I'm not in it for fame or fortune. I'm not in it because I'm going to be popular. Because, listen, high school principals and directors of schools are not always popular because they have to make decisions on that. So that's how you build trust. When you make a decision and people in the community can say, I don't agree with his decision, but I understand his decision. That's where trust is built, all right? Now, to talk about repercussions and things like that, those are just situations that come up that you've got to deal with individually, all right? If somebody brings to you a piece of information where it leads to somebody losing their job, then you've got to take care of that employee that brought it to you. But at the end of the day, they've got to understand that that's just part of the game, or not game, but that's just part of the system. All right, but again, they have to trust me because I built that trust in them.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You mentioned earlier that you had saw our board meeting online. Were you able to catch the interview from last night, or did you?
I did see some of it.
Oh,
yes.
okay.
Yes,
All right.
I saw Dr. Alsop.
Okay.
Yes, I saw some of that.
So we all look good on TV.
You do.
We agree with that. But at that board meeting, you might remember that we made a big decision to change our evaluation model from the team to project coach.
Right.
Have you familiar with Project Coach, or what have you used in the past?
I will tell you that the first I'd heard of Project Coach was in the April Zoom board meeting. So I'm now I'm glad that I watched that April board meeting because Bobby said at that time that they went to Lawrence County to study that. Just so happens I have a great friend from college who's assistant principal at Lawrence County. I called her and said, hey, tell me, because they had used Team, that's what we use in White County. I said, tell me about the goods and the bad, the good and the bad. And she said that she felt like at this point that was a better system than Team, but they're still working out some kinks with it. But that's the way it is with anything with an evaluation system. Let me first say this about evaluation systems. I wish we didn't have to use them. I really do. I wish we didn't have to use them. I wish everybody understood every day we went into our jobs or our classrooms that we're just going to do the best we can. We're going to give it every bit we can, and I don't need to be evaluated. But we don't live in a utopian society. So that's why those evaluations are there. So I've seen teaching and learning increase since we've been doing the Team system, all right? If you go by that rubric, you're going to be a better teacher. If you embrace it, if you say, all right, I don't know it all, I want to get better, I'm going to embrace this rubric and I'm going to do it. I'm not going to do it once. I'm not going to put it in the drawer and say, all right, when that administrator comes in there, I'm going to pull it out and I'm going to do it. You're not embracing anything that way. You're playing a game, right? So I think that's why it's important to embrace that. So here's the difference to get to the nuts and bolts of your Team. To me, with a teacher, we may be in their room one time, maybe 2 times. With Project Coach, you're going to be in there at least 4 times. It's going to be a shorter window instead of the whole time. So at White County High School in a block, we're on 80-minute blocks. So when I go to evaluate now, it's going to be 80 minutes long. That's a long time for everybody. But with this Project Coach, you're just getting a snapshot, but you're getting more opportunities to be in the classroom. That's great. I love that. I think that's great. Administrators need to be in the classroom. Not to be a gotcha, not to say you're not doing that, but administrators need to be in the classroom because that's where the good stuff's happening, right? When we're sitting in our office up there, all the stuff you're talking about complaints and all that. When I'm in my office, that's where that happens. When I'm in the classroom, that's where the exciting stuff happens because that's where you're seeing students learn, right? And so I like that about Project Coach. The other thing that I like is that I may be wrong on this, but Bobby said this in the April meeting, and she said this as well. You don't score until the end of the year, all right? And so here's my thing about that. With Team right now, we can go in with a post-conference with our teachers, and we can have the best post-conference, and we can talk about, hey, you did this really well, and hey, I think you can work and grow in this one, in this area, and everybody can be feeling good, and then what do you have to do at the end of that post-conference? Well, here's your scores, all right? And when the teacher looks at those scores, what happens? Just straight down. They just feel deflated at that point. And so I like that about Project Coach. You don't do that until the very end of the year. You get to build up to that. You get an opportunity to have discussions and, hey, let's get better at this, and then we talk about scoring, all right? And so I think that's good. Now, we've not taken that shift in White County yet, but I think that's a positive thing. If Bobby and his team believe in it, like I'm sure they do, then I'm excited to see where it goes.
Okay. Thank you, Grant.
Yeah.
If you get elected, you will be representing Warren County School to the media. How
Okay.
will you address that?
Okay. Well, first let me say I have an English journalism degree, so I went to school to be a part of the media. I thought I was going to be a sports broadcaster on ESPN. That didn't happen. I wasn't pretty enough for that. So, but I think that has helped prepare me to deal with the media. Guys, we cannot function this day and age without the media's help. What a fantastic asset you have in this setup with Warren County Schools TV. All right, let me say my belief in that. We have to make decisions that are not always popular, all right? But we need to use the media to to help us get out the good. We are so bad in school systems of not tooting our own horn. All right, so we gotta ask the media to help us, because there's gonna be a headline that says some bad things every once in a while. But you know what? If we saturate that with the good things that's happening in our school system, then it's not as bad when we get those bad things. All right, when we get people on our side and saying, "Hey, look at what they did," and look, you've got a great newspaper in the Southern Standard that's doing that as well, because you can see all the things they're doing to help schools by being here on a Saturday, nonetheless, to be a part of this. But you're using a TV station that has an opportunity to get good news out to your constituents, really. I mean, you're elected by them. So don't you want them to see? Because you get to hear it, you get to see it. Why don't we broadcast that out to the world? One of the things that I've been able to use, hopefully effectively, is social media with my students. I don't love that, but it's a necessary evil, because one, they need the information. Two, they need to be taught how to use social media responsibly. And if I don't do that as principal, then nobody's going to do that for them. All right. So media is not just newspaper, not just TV, but you're talking about social media as well, and that's a dangerous world, because there's a lot of negative out there, and that's the reason I say I don't love it, because it opens me up to criticism that I normally probably wouldn't see. But I'm a grown person. I've got to be able to take some of that criticism. But it's vital. All right, it's just vital that we work together as media and administration to make sure that the citizens of our community understand what good is going on in our school system.
Thank you.
Grant, we the board, as I'm on my second term, get along really well and organize together.
Yeah.
With the current director.
Mm-hmm.
How would you keep us informed of the operations of the district and communicate with us?
Again, that's necessary too. I will tell you, I'm a little unique because I serve on a board like you. I have the opportunity to serve on the board of control for the TSSAA, Tennessee Secondary School Athletic Association. I was elected by our region, Warren County being one of those schools, by the administration there. And so I understand your plight sometimes. And so when I get phone calls of asking me questions and I don't know what's going on, that makes me kind of look bad. So I understand what you're saying. It's necessary, I think, to communicate with the board weekly, just in a general way, whether it's email or a newsletter, taking information from schools and making sure you're getting that. I think you would find from me, I don't want to bother you all as a board with the day-to-day monotony of things, but here's the other thing. If something comes to me and I feel like you're going to get hit with it, then I'm going to let you know. I just want you to know before that happens. It may never happen. They may never call you, but I just want you to be aware so that if you get that phone call, you can at least have an idea of that. Now, that works two ways for me, and I would say this, I would ask this of you as a board. If you get those phone calls, you serve your constituents and you need to serve those. But I would hope that you would turn around and say, hey, thank you for calling me, and I understand your concern. Would you call Mr. Swallows and talk to him and let him try to do that? Or even say, hey, would you call the building principal and talk to he or she, and let's get to the bottom of it. And if you don't get to the bottom of it, call me back and I'll make sure you get to the bottom of it. All right. And so I think that's important. We've got to be a team. The director, the board, the central office staff. I'm going to keep going back to this. One team, not factions of a team. One team. We've got to be in this together and all saying the same things. I think that's important too. We've got to be setting the tone and setting the culture, and you're a part of that. And so we need to be meeting and understanding where you want to go and communicating that out as well. So I would only hope to grow that. I've seen the camaraderie you have just sitting here before we got going, that you enjoy being around each other. That's important. Yes. It's extremely important because you're going to be around each other a lot. And as a director, you've got to have that as well.
Thank you.
That's a good, very good statement. And let me just, as a footnote on what we've been talking about, the director's relationship with the media, which is the conduit, the pipeline to the public.
Yes, sir.
They're exercising their proper appropriate role when they serve as the eyes and ears and really the watchdog
That's right.
of all public institutions and agencies. So I totally agree with you. Two of the worst things one could do as director of schools or head of any organization, the worst thing to do is to lie to the media.
Sure.
And to try to cover up something. The next very bad thing is to run from the media.
Sure.
And be inaccessible.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
I think we understand that you would be transparent, you would be forthcoming and honest. Let me get on to the question that I think we all have to be thinking about. This whole discussion for the last 45 minutes has been talking about what we would do in, quote, normal times.
Right.
We are in extremely abnormal times with COVID-19. One of the things that we have to look at, and if you are elected as director of Warren County Schools, you have to look at is how do we draw the wagons in a circle under a crushing economy and plummeting tax revenues?
Right.
What do we do? What strategy would you have? And I know, and we've talked about this, Nashville Metro Public Schools, they've got their marching orders to cut millions of dollars out of their operating budget this year.
Right.
I mean, like starting right now.
Yes, sir.
What would be your approach to, what cargo would you throw overboard to keep the ship floating?
Well, I'm glad this is on TV because maybe they'll just publish this out. My plan. I'm kidding on that because honestly, nobody knows what we're looking at come in August because, guys, we don't know what we're looking at in a month.
Right.
We have dealt with situations that we've never prepared for or really know what to do. I was thinking, coming down here, if you asked me what I was going to do on my first day as Warren County Director, I could give you a good answer and make you think I know what I'm talking about. But you know what? My first day as Warren County Director, it could look a whole lot different right now than in that day than it does right now. So again, we've got to. The best thing you said in that is circle the wagons. All right, we've got to circle the wagons in Warren County and understand where we are, and then start to immediately build trust with our employees that they understand, hey, we're going to do what's best here. We've got to set about the work of educating our students, whatever that looks like in August. If we are still doing what we're calling remote learning, then we got to get better, all right? Because we have already had a lull for a long period of time for students. So we're going to get, if we have to do remote learning, then we're going to get better at it. But if we're not going to do that, then we've got to set about the work of getting our constituents to trust us that we can go back to school as normal, all right? So we're going to communicate with them, we're going to communicate with them, and we're going to communicate with them again, all right? Because if we don't communicate with them, they're not going to trust us, all right? Now, on to that. I think that's got to be your first thing. If we don't do that, we can't do anything, all right? And then we step back and look as data comes in of, all right, here's what our tax revenues look like. Here's what the CARES Act or the stimulus money, here's where it can help us offset some of those tax revenues because we want to keep our people working. Let's look for that and make sure. But then we've got to use those data points to make sure that we do that. Now, here's the thing. I'm not going to lie to you and tell you I know where I'm going to cut because I just don't know that. I'm not familiar enough with the district. I've not been in there in those budget talks. And so I'm not going to lie to you and say this is what I would do. I can tell you what I would do is sit down with the people that do know and say, all right, we're going to have frank conversations about this is what we're going to do. These are our essential functions. If we've got to cut, where do we go from here? All right, and that's why a high functioning team is way too important. And especially, I'll go back to what you said at the beginning. If you're coming from the outside in, you've got to have that high functioning team in place. I assume that we do. All right, but that's where that trust has to be built quicker than anything, so that we can have frank, trustworthy conversations to talk about that. I think one of the things that I would want to do is if we're looking at revenues being down, they're not going to initially be down because we're working a year behind. What's going to be the trouble is a year from now, all right? So something we can do is if we have a vacant position that doesn't necessarily have to be filled, then we hold off a little bit. That saves us some money, and then we know where we are, all right? So those are things that you can do that way you don't get to next July and we get a budget that looks like, oh my goodness, what just happened? We've got to cut all these positions. If we can work previously to make sure that we don't have those positions, then maybe we can save ourselves some heartache in the long run. I know I rambled through that, but hopefully I made myself clear.
I gather from that your first level of defense here would be not filling vacant positions.
In the strategy, absolutely. I think that's the easiest way. If you can get around it. I mean, some of them, if we've got 20 kindergarten kids sitting in a classroom and no teacher, that's not good.
Sure.
You know, so those essential things. But if we've got some vacant positions, that could save us in the long run.
So have you worked with the budget, and how much have you worked?
Well, I'm fortunate to be a part of a team in White County where Mr. Drumbarger, who's our director, and even Ms. Crouch before him, would pull us in as building principals to talk about budgets and needs. And so we had that meeting last week, and Mr. Drumbarger said, oh, here comes Mr. Swallows, and he's got all these positions in his head, and he knows that he's got a half-time position here. And so I've had that experience. And so I feel good about that. Now, again, as a director, working with the finance committee, I think in Warren County, the director sits on the finance committee.
Yes.
So I can't say that I've had experience with that, but I can tell you I'm a fast learner when it comes to things like that because it's crucial. You know, as a director, the budget is a crucial part of what I would have to do. And so would want to get on the ground quickly with your finance director to understand where we are and the budget director in the central office because that's vital. I don't look good in orange. I don't want to go to jail because we're not doing things well in the budget. So, you know, we got to do that right.
Grant, evaluation of oneself can be very, very difficult.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What would you consider your strong points and your weak points?
I like to talk too much, but I consider that a strong point. I think I'm an effective communicator, and I pride myself on that. I may over-communicate, but I'd rather do that than not. I think there's many areas that I can improve. The one that comes to my mind simply because of some of the events of this week, I need to be a better delegator. Not necessarily that I don't ask people to do other things, but I need to be clearer in my expectations of them when I do that. Because everybody wants to know what's expected of them. Right. And so if I don't give them clear expectations, I'm not setting them up for success. And so if I could do one of those things, if I could do that better, I want to work to try to do that better, I guess is what I should say.
Very good. Thank you.
I guess in the planning and prioritizing, and you mentioned a little bit of this with Bill's question, but could you talk about how you're going to build your team coming in? Would you, like some do, everybody has to interview for their job again? Or you should look at it and say, hey, this is good, we're going to work it? I guess one of the fears we might have would be, I got this guy in White County that does this a lot better, I'm going to bring him. And you know, what happens when you really have to clean house? Sure. You know, what's your team building?
I will say, first of all, that if the board is looking for a henchman to come in and clean the house, I'm not that guy. I'm just not that guy. I've done this before at White County. I was not in the school system in White County. Mm-hmm. I came in, took over a very tough position, but I was fortunate that all of my assistant principals that were there the year before stayed. Now, that can be tough, but it's about team building and trust, and I needed them to help show me what the groundwork needed to be that needed to be laid so that we could move forward. I feel like, especially in this situation, guys, the team that's in place has got to be the team that's in place, all right? Now, if somebody just can't get on board with the new guy coming in, then we'll have that conversation. But I would work to try to sit down with them and say, hey, let's see if we can work together. We got to build that trust, all right? And that's the hardest part about this. Listen, like I said, again, this may be a case study in what not to say in interviews, but the hardest part of this, because of the times we're in, is going to be building that team, all right? And if you choose me to be a director, I've got to get that team and me together quickly. It is May the 2nd, all right? And we've got to get together quickly and be on the same page and start working together. Now, with that being said, if we go 6 months to a year, and I've observed them in many situations and it's just not working, then that's when we start to make those tough decisions. But here's the other thing. I don't feel like it's fair to me to walk into anybody's office and say, I know somebody else that's better at this than you. It's not fair for me to do that. My job as the director is to walk into their office and say, look, hey, this is not going exactly the way I want it to go. Here's what we need to work on, and let's get better at this and give them a chance to do that. And then if they can't do that, then we start talking about who's the other person that can do that, because it's not fair to just walk in somebody's office and say, or even a classroom, even a teacher, and say, hey, it's not working out. Got to go on. We got to work with them. We got to build that up before we do that.
Good. Thank you.
Grant.
Yes?
Before we move on to Sue,
I'm talking too long. You're telling me. No.
I just wanted to make the statement, we just feel like that was a necessary question, but
Sure.
we really have a good school district. Warren
Yeah,
County
sure.
is a great district, and we're
Yeah.
proud of that.
Absolutely.
So just wanted to make
As you should be.
Yeah.
We are. How familiar are you with getting grants, writing grants and getting grants and talking to people about grants?
So let's go back to that area where we talk about our weaknesses. Now, writing grants, I'm not probably the best at, but that's again, knowing your strengths and weaknesses. I guarantee you've got a really good grant writer in Warren County. So we've got to get that staff together and make sure that they're working on that because people are better at writing grants. They need those details out there. And so as a director, you need to set the course of action and say, hey, here's this grant. I want you to work on that. Let's put a team together and talk about what we're doing, because that's the important part. When you put it on one person to write a grant, they don't know everything that's going on, right? So let's put a team together and do that. It's a necessary thing to get that funding, all right? That'll fund lots of things that we might not have in our general budget, that we can do that. So that's an important part of it. We need to make sure that our team's equipped to, one, find it, and two, be able to write it well. And I hate writing grants where we just write a bunch of fluff. Don't even do that. Let's don't do that. Let's do what we're doing. What's it going to do? Let's don't jump through a bunch of hoops just so we can do it. Let's do what we're doing and help us with doing that.
All right, sir. Thank you.
It's in his name.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, I know
Good at
for,
grants.
That's right.
My name.
That's right.
I know for a fact, getting into the grants can really be a problem. In my job, I have to do that.
Absolutely.
So I understand the issue with that.
Federal programs, I tell our federal programs director in White County all the time, bless her heart. I mean,
Yes.
she's just got so many of those things that she's got to weed through.
You do.
But she does an effective job of when she finds a grant, she'll put a document out there. Of course, if we don't work together anymore, we're wrong. There's so many tools that we have to work together. She puts a Google Doc out there, and we put our ideas in there. She writes them up, and we go to work, all right? And that's the way we can do things. We just got to communicate it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I really like how you keep talking about your teamwork and teamwork. So describe, I guess you may already have your leadership style then is to build these teams and you work together as teams. And
Well, sorry, go ahead. I think I said this, the newspaper reached out to all the candidates and asked us some questions and said this. And so I'm an old football player, all right? I'm an old football player, got to play and played quarterback, all right? And I was not the most talented ever, all right? But I prided myself in getting people where they needed to be lined up and know what was going on. And then all I had to do at that point was say hut and give them the ball and let them do the work, all right? That to me is what a leader does, all right? I'm never, as a director, I'm not going to teach a first grader how to read. I mean, I'd love to do that, but I'm not going to have time to do that. I have to depend on that teacher in that classroom to do that. So I've got to get them lined up in the right spots and then get them the ball and let them go to work and then just support them as much as I humanly possibly can. And that's one of the things that I talk about. One, teachers need to know, and I guess I'll just use this time to say that. The team in Warren County needs to know to expect this from Grant Swallows. One, I'm going to respect them, and I'm going to expect them to respect me. And then two, I'm going to expect them to create learning opportunities in everything we do. Everything. Not just the classroom. Everything. When we have that student section up there cheering against White County, we're learning how to be good citizens and respectful of everybody else. We're creating learning opportunities in everything we do. And then we're going to make sure that we are mobilizing our teachers to be effective. All right? We're giving them the tools to be effective and supported in their classroom. And then we're going to mobilize, and then we're going to recognize. We're going to talk to you when you do something well. All right? We're going to shout that from the rooftops. Everybody sees that last-second shot that Warren County hit against White County. Everybody saw it on TV. That young man was a hero, right? Guess what? On this stage, I guarantee you there was a great play that happened somewhere in the school year. We need to recognize that person. Mm-hmm. We need to recognize that student. We need to do the same for our employees. You talk about our custodial staff that does a fantastic job of cleaning our building. They need to know that. Yesterday was lunch, I'm going to say this wrong, but lunch superhero or lunch hero day.
Right.
You know what? Those ladies need to know. My lunch ladies need to know how much I appreciate them. Right. And I sent out a picture on Facebook and said, you know what? These are our heroes. They need to know that. That's how you build an effective team. That's where my leadership style is that we put people in the right places to be successful. You know, we can't all be teachers. We can't be. We can't all be custodians. We can't, but we got to get the people that are gifted in that way in the right places, and then we're going to respect them. We're going to create learning opportunities. We're going to mobilize them to do it, and then we're going to recognize them to do it. That's how you do it. They got to trust you and go from there. Okay, that's exciting. I'm sorry I get fired up about stuff like that because that's what I'm a football player, coach. That's when we get excited about building effective and teams that are going to go about the work of making students better in Warren County.
Because everybody on the team counts.
That's right. Absolutely.
Everybody
If you don't
counts.
have it, then we're not in the right place.
Thank you.
Mr. Swallows, if I asked you about the student nutrition program and our summer feeding program and how we're continuing to deliver lunch and breakfast during the COVID-19 unplanned recess.
Right.
If I asked you about student health and mentioned that we do have nurses in all of our schools.
Yes, sir.
If I mentioned student safety and mentioned we have SROs in all our schools, you'd probably agree with all of that.
Absolutely.
Support that. But I want to ask you this.
Okay.
I'm anticipating, I'm assuming you would agree with all that and support it. The arts, performing arts, visual arts, music, things of this sort. What do you have to say? I mean, on any given day, if we had students in this auditorium, there will be at least some of them who have tremendous God-given potential to excel.
That's right.
In playing the harp, playing violin.
That's right.
As a painter, as a watercolorist, what would you do to support the arts and enlarging opportunities in our schools?
So all those people that were watching that said and heard me say I'm an old football coach, I hope they didn't turn it off, all right, or an old football player, because I'm passionate about this. If we're not giving students opportunities to show their God-given talents, then we're wrong, all right? We just flat out wrong. My wife she could sing. If I brought her up here, we'd just let her sing, and I would shut up because you'd say she is fantastic, and she is. And I don't support arts because of that, but listen, I would love if students would wake up in the morning and say, I can't wait to get to English class. I would love that. Yeah. They don't do that. But you know what they do say? I can't wait to get to band practice. I can't wait to get to theater. I can't wait to get to Beta Club, or I can't wait to get to whatever. Hey, we've got to get students engaged in our school and in our culture, and then that leads to learning. And then we need to recognize those kids. They need to see the principal. They need to see the board members. They need to see the central office staff sitting on that front row. And when they have that concert saying, you were fantastic. That was great. There are scholarships available. Let's push them there. Because that's a part of the culture, too, that I probably left out. Listen, I don't want to just be good in football. I want to be good in everything. If we're going to do something, let's do it well. All right? That's the same thing. We've got to support kids. If we're going to sit back and just say, this is a good gig, I'm going to sit here, you guys just do whatever you want to do. I don't want you on my team. I don't want you on my team. I want a band director that's going to find that kid that's walking the halls, that goes home and practices that instrument and doesn't feel like they're a part of anything. I want that band director to go out there and find that kid. Go find that kid and get them involved in something, because that's what we got to have. We got to have them involved, and we got to make them proud to be a part of this school, because then that's when your culture shifts. Because when they're proud to come to this school or to the elementary schools or if they're proud to be a part of the district, that's when your culture shifts. And the arts are a huge part of that. That's a great way to get students involved.
Well, you know, I'm going to agree with you on that, but I think probably the most important thing that's been said this morning is when you talk about that student wanting to be in school that day.
Absolutely.
Whatever it takes,
Absolutely.
whatever it takes, that student wants to be in school.
Can I follow up on the nutrition? Because I guarantee you my mom is watching this interview, and she would be mad at me. She was the school nutrition supervisor for many years in Overton County. So we know how important that is. And as far as health goes, listen, we're educating the whole child. We're not just educating them in English. We're educating the whole child. We have to feed them. They're not going to learn if they're hungry. All right. They're not going to do it. And some of them may leave us and they don't have food at home. So we're giving them the opportunity to get some meals. That's why it's so important that we're giving them meals during this time. I appreciate the governor, and I appreciate the state's leadership in saying, or the national leadership that's saying, we're going to feed these kids because we know they're not getting it at home. But that's also teaching them how to be disciplined in what they're eating, and I get it. Trust me, I said the same thing. I'm sorry to my mom. People like lunchroom, I don't like lunchroom food, but hey, we're going to do the best we can to provide them with a nutritious meal, and we want them to like it, but at the end of the day, we're teaching them how to be nutritious and eat healthy and do well.
No. Thank you. Madam Chairperson, we're going to be running out of time. Can I go ahead and ask my ambush question?
Yes. Go ahead.
Okay, the ambush
Certainly.
question. Who is your most admired person, living or dead, and you may have more than one, your most admired, and why?
Okay. Well, I do have more than one. All right, and I've already talked about them, but I'm going to go with the route of talking about my parents, just because how special they are in my life. Because I'm not going to. My dad has taught me so much. He's taught me that if you're going to do something, you're going to do it well. Don't do anything halfway. All right. My mom, who is the most gracious person you'll ever meet in the world, has taught me to be gracious. All right. Has taught me to love people and be a part of that. I have to include my wife in this, because she has taught me so much of what it's like to be a partner and a supporter. That woman, bless her heart, she supports me in so many things and allows me to do the things that I do. And so those are the people. You're going to find that family is the most important thing to me. I'm just going to say this because you brought it up. If we come to Warren County, it's going to be a family decision. If you offer me this job, it's going to be a family decision. All right, it's not my decision. It's my wife and my kids. That's what it's a part of. But those are the people that I look up to. They're the ones that have set me on the path that I'm on today, have supported me through and through the good times and the bad, and that's who's taught me a lot. Now, I could go on for days. Coaches that I've had, teachers that I've had that have made a difference, but those are my people, and they're always going to be my people.
Thank you.
Grant, we're about to wrap up. We're a little over the 1 hour mark.
Sorry.
No, that's good. It's a good interview. what are your plans? Should you be named director? Do you have plans to move into Warren County?
Well, I think that's an important step, one that we would have to just really discuss and lay out what the expectations are there. Now, I will say this. I talk about being an engaged leader. Now, I could live in the smack dab in the middle of Warren County and not be engaged. Or I could live where I am now and be engaged. And if you know me, I will tell you, I took the job in White County. I lived in Putnam County for the first 4 years. And if you talk to the people in White County, you'd find out I was as engaged. And honestly, my wife's probably watching this too. She's scared of that because she knows it's important to me to be engaged in a part of the community, okay? So to answer your question, I don't have those plans yet. I think those are the discussions that we have to have. If listen, you've got an extremely hard decision. You may not want me as your director of schools, but we've got to have those discussions as us and then as a family. I wouldn't feel comfortable, to be bluntly honest with you, I wouldn't feel comfortable making that decision without asking my wife to come visit Warren County. Not that she's not been here, but it's important because we would work together. I'd want her to meet you before we made those decisions. I think that's important. I'd want you to meet my kids. That's important because we're a team, all right? And so I just think that's what we would have to have those discussions. That's one of my questions on my list is timeline. I know we're on a crunch, all right? And so we may not have those opportunities. And so, I want to visit with you all. If you were gracious enough to want me to be your next director, then we need to have those discussions.
Okay. Do you have any questions for us?
Okay. So let me ask this, and I don't want it to be confusing, but I think the easy question would be for me to say, what do you want in a director? I'm not going to ask that. I'm going to ask this question. You choose me as the next director, and we are sitting here a year from now. What needs to be true for you to consider this a good hire, that you have hired me in a year's time, look into the future, what needs to be true in Warren County of me for you to consider this a positive hire? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. It does.
Can you answer it? I think I'll make it easier. It's a piggyback off of what are you looking for. Mm-hmm. But I can tell you what you're looking for. I can tell you that. I'm more interested in the results. I'm more interested in what it looks like a year from now.
Any board member that wants to respond, you're welcome to. But your enthusiasm, your honesty, your integrity, that means a lot to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And your willingness to come in and to evaluate. You said 6 to 12 months to look at our staff and faculty, because we've got a great staff and faculty.
Right. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Good.
I think we touched on a little bit about public opinion and reaching out and all of that, and we've been contacted by a lot of people with a lot of different opinions. I think a success for me would be during your evaluation. Saying I've had so many people come to me and say, you did a good job.
Okay. Yeah.
And I think if the teachers, we'll have things that we want to see out of you, but when we get the feedback and the teachers and the principals and the people in the community come and say, hey, this guy is engaged, this guy is trustworthy, that he did build a great team, he did change our culture. And I'd like to see that, within a year.
Right. Yeah. Good.
I would like to see the open door policy. I think that's so important for the community to know that you're there. They can come and talk. And I understand the steps that the people's got to go through. But I believe in being open, straightforward. And like you said, all the time, you can't make people happy, but you need to listen all the time and get different opinions. And I think the open door policy it's really critical to me in my eyes.
Great. Yeah.
And I like the honesty, the integrity, good teamwork, support of the teachers, the staff, of the community, and all us and everybody involved.
Good.
Yes.
Okay.
Good. If it's my turn, I would I'd just adopt Teddy's answer.
Sure.
Looking back on it a year from now, if people in the community, if our educators I'm talking about people who actually know something and are good observers. If they come and say, you made a good choice, you know, I guess one of the other things we'd be looking for is on student achievement scores. Now, here again, we're talking about numbers. We would want to see culture. We'd want to see something happening positive in culture. Not that we have a bad culture,
Sure,
but
right,
But
absolutely.
you know, we want to see that culture strengthened,
Yes.
reinforced, with everybody pouring in the same direction when it comes to what constitutes achievement. In terms of student achievement numbers, our compliments and our hearts go out to all of these hardworking teachers and principals and instructional coordinators who've been working on this. We don't want to see the pot of water on the stove with a little bit of steam just kind of lazily wafting up. We want to see that pot in a full boil.
All right. Okay.
We want to see some actual movement in the numbers.
Yeah. Can I ask you what you feel like your challenges are there?
Well, the challenges, and of course the state, the state panel of achievement numbers and TVOS scores and all of this.
Right.
They tell a story, and we may not all agree that, about testing. We have to have some.
Sure.
We got to know whether we're doing the job. That's why car manufacturers put an oil dipstick in the engine, so you can pull it out and see what the oil level is. And the same thing with student testing. But we would be looking for changes in the positive direction in numbers.
So since you brought up cars, let's use an analogy here. Okay, if you're going to shop for a car, all right. Sometimes you may need an SUV, you may need a Jeep or an off-road, you may need somebody that's going to get down in the muddy dirt, and be ready to go, or you may need a Cadillac that's just going to be smooth. And what does your next director need to be? Does it need to be an off-road, get down in the mud and make changes and do all those type things, or do you need somebody that's just going to come on and keep us going where we are? Or are you going to need somebody that's going to have an SUV that needs to bring some things with them? What do you think you need in that director?
I think we need all of those things, but mainly we need a vehicle that's moving.
Okay. All right.
We're not putting a vehicle in the garage and keeping it parked.
Right.
We've got to be moving.
Okay.
I'd like to see a school bus
Okay.
There you go.
with all the right people on it.
Okay. Good.
New
I like that.
ideals.
That's good.
New ideals.
Cheerleader.
Okay. Cheerleader. Okay. Good.
Grant, do you have any closing statements for us that you'd like to pass along before we
One
wrap
more
this
question
up?
that I want to ask. I did bring up the fact that I serve on the board of the TWSAA. Okay, and if I moved to this job, I would still be eligible to serve on that board. Would love to continue that, but I would want the blessing of the board because it does take me away. We meet every other month for a day, and so would want to make sure you all are comfortable with that before we
I think
did
that'd be
anything.
just a feather in the cap of us.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Let me ask one last question. I think that any organization that brings together people with learned skills, and that's what the teaching community is all about, should be putting something back in terms of research and producing scientific data, producing evidence. How would you feel about doing, of course after they're properly vetted, maybe doing some student achievement experiments in Warren County?
Well, I think you've got to be careful there just to make sure that we're following. I mean, you're talking about scientific data. I mean, my dissertation is just like slapping me in the face when you're talking about that because that's what I'm doing, And
Right.
so learning those skills to be able to do that, I think that's good. It needs to be scientifically proven. It needs to make sure that students are aware and safe in this experiment.
Right.
I don't want to just go willy-nilly and say, "Hey, I heard this on the internet," and we need to vet that properly. But at the end of the day, I think if it's a decision that's going to affect students positively, then I'm all for it. If it's going to be something that we're unsure of, listen, in education, it goes round and round. You ask any person that's been in education, they'll say, we were doing this 10 years ago, and now they're just calling it something different, right?
Yeah,
And so,
right.
you know, it's just, it does that. And so we're not going to probably come up with anything that's brand new, but we just need to do it better, all right? And so,
I'd like to say, Grant, you know, we have always had a director that has been involved in other things outside of, I mean, you know, with education, but on many boards and goes and does different things. We would like the director to still be highly involved in other activities and educational type boards and everything. That's really good. So.
yeah. Well, I have the utmost respect for Bobby Cox. You all made a great hire. I don't.
We do
sure who
too.
I'm not sure who was on the board when he was hired, but he has done a fantastic job. And really, one of the reasons that I'm sitting here, because of the work that's being done in Warren County excites me so much that I want to have these discussions and be a part of this. So that's I think he's done a great job. And when I talk about fixing the culture, that's not necessarily something that I know what the culture is in Warren County. I just know that works, and we get the culture right, those strategy things are going to take off.
Good.
Appreciate what you said about Bobby.
Yeah.
Yes.
He has been, I never cease to be amazed at his energy level, and he's staying engaged all the time. I could send him an email at 9 o'clock at night and get a reply back in 10 minutes. And
He's probably still in his suit and tie at that time, too.
yeah, that's probably true. He was, I've got to say, he was of school directors, he was one of the most presentable.
Oh, you better believe it.
And,
He puts everybody else to shame when it comes
Yeah,
to that.
he was presentable.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else from anyone before
Well,
we
just
wrap up?
one question, I guess, is, and it's a very cliche interview question, but on the onset of, you know, what are you going to do? You know, you're not hired here, or you have other director jobs you're looking at, or stay as principal, and then following up on that is, you know, hired here, where do you see yourself in 5-10 years?
Well, great question. I am not looking at any other director positions. You need to understand, I love my job.
Okay.
I love my kids at White County High School. And I'm going to get sorry. You know, just being around them last night and not having the opportunity to have been around them for a month, just, I love my job. You know, I love it. And that, I hope that my emotion in it shows you that I wouldn't just go after any job. All right. This has to be the right fit and the right thing for you and for me. All right. And so that's why I'm here. My future, you know, again, that's something that this, for me, from a principal to a director, is the next logical step. And so I want to make sure that I give it my all. And I've been in White County. This next year would be my 10th year. It's important to me for family that I have security and we stay, and because that's it. I've got young kids, all right, and they're going to be a part of a school system. And so if I'm going to move them, that's a big deal, and I'm not going to do it lightly. So if I come down here and we move them, because I've got an upcoming 7th grader, an upcoming 5th grader, and I'm one going into kindergarten. So we're going to do that. We're going to do it. We're going to go all in, all right? And I'm not going to, you know, provided you all like me, I'm not going to be trying to move them again, all right? So that's important to me, and that's why it's got to be a big fit. And, you know, I learned a long time ago that I certainly have aspirations to do great things, but at the end of the day, being about the work of educating kids is the great thing. All right. I don't need to have my names, and I don't need to have my name in lights. I want to serve my family, and I want to serve my job and the people that I'm associated with. And so wherever that takes me, that's where I'm going to be.
Thank you.
Thank you, Grant.
Thank you.
I appreciate that. As you know, we will meet on Thursday,
Okay.
May the 7th.
Okay.
To name a director
All
in a
right.
called meeting.
Okay.
And I guess we'll wrap things up. And I guess we'll recess until 1 p.m.
All right. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right.